Trade wars aren't just about numbers, they're about people. And right now, Canada is in the middle of a storm. Prices are rising, businesses are shifting, and workers are caught in the crossfire. Today, we're going to talk about how Trump's latest trade war is changing Canadian lives, what's happening, why, and what comes next. Before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. How do you think these trade wars will end? Let's break it down. In early February, Trump imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian imports, excluding energy products, which were hit with an additional 10% tariff. The White House justified this move as a measure to pressure Canada into tightening border security and cracking down on fentanyl trafficking. In response, Canada announced 25% retaliatory tariffs on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, with plans to expand them to $125 billion. The Prime Minister defended the countermeasures, urging Canadians to buy domestic and warning that these tariffs could escalate if the U.S. doesn't back down. Well, here's the problem. Canada doesn't really hold any leverage. The U.S. only sends 18% of its exports to Canada, while 75% of Canadian exports go to the U.S. The economic relationship isn't quite equal, and that makes Canada far more vulnerable. So how is this trade war actually changing life in Canada? Let's start with the basics. Costs are rising across the board. Gasoline prices have shot up as tariffs on Canadian crude oil drive up costs at the pump. Even though Canada is a major energy producer, its refineries are designed for foreign oil, meaning it still imports refined fuels from the U.S. And now those imports are more expensive. Food prices are rising as tariffs disrupt cross-border supply chains. Many staple products, especially dairy, have become more expensive, and Canadian shoppers are boycotting U.S. goods in response. Some retailers have even resorted to mislabeling American products as Canadian-made to avoid backlash, a deceptive practice known as maple washing. Maple washing. The housing market is also feeling the squeeze. The Canadian lumber industry, a key pillar of the economy, has been hit hard. Trump delayed new tariffs on Canadian lumber, but the uncertainty has sent prices soaring. The result? More expensive home construction, worsening affordability, and skyrocketing rents in major cities. Canadians are starting to pay the price. Every trip to the grocery store, every gas station visit, and every rent check is a reminder of just how much this trade war is reshaping their lives. Now, let's take it beyond household expenses. Entire industries are going to suffer. The energy sector is in turmoil. Canada sends 80% of its oil and gas exports to the U.S. But with new tariffs and America's shift toward energy independence, Canadian producers are scrambling for buyers. The cancellation of the Keystone XL was already a major blow. Now Canada's largest export industry is on even shakier ground. Manufacturing has also taken a hit. U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum are raising costs for key industries, making it more expensive to produce everything from cars to appliances. Businesses are struggling to stay competitive, leading to job losses and factory slowdowns. Meanwhile, retailers and small businesses are scrambling to adapt. Tin House Brewing Company in British Columbia, for example, has switched to Chinese-made cans and local grains to avoid U.S. tariff costs. This kind of supply chain shift is happening across industries, but it comes with new risk, more expensive materials, unreliable suppliers, and long-term uncertainty. If Canada can't rely on the U.S., where does it turn? The options aren't as great as you think. China was once seen as a potential alternative, and I hear people talk about it every day. But Beijing just slapped a 100% tariff on Canadian agricultural exports, like rapeseed oil and peas, crippling Canadian farmers. The political relationship between Ottawa and Beijing is at a historic low, making trade diversification in that direction unlikely. Europe is always a possibility, but the reality is that Canada's exports to the EU are only a fraction of what it sends to the US. Regulatory hurdles, competition from European producers, and geographic distance all make expanding trade with Europe a long-term challenge. What do you think? Mexico? Although it is growing, it's nowhere near big enough to replace American demand. In the short term, there is no simple solution. Canada is economically dependent on the U.S., and Trump knows it. Then there's what some say is Trump's craziest move yet. Trump has talked about annexing Canada and calling it the 51st state. It was meant to be provocative, but it underscores a larger reality. Trump sees Canada as a subordinate economic player rather than a true equal. His administration is willing to squeeze Canada economically until it either submits to new trade terms or collapses under the pressure. And at this point, it seems that he would way more prefer it collapse. The Canadian Foreign Minister called it an existential threat to Canada, warning if Trump can do this to his closest ally, Europe should be next in line to worry. Trade wars aren't just a game of political chess, they have real consequences. And right now, Canadians are feeling them in their wallets, their jobs, and their country's future. So what are the real choices? Canada could double down on domestic production, aiming for long-term independence. It could seek new trade allies, but that would take years. Or it could negotiate with Trump on his terms. None of these options are easy, and with Trump in office, the situation is only going to be worse. Canada is at a crossroads. Does it fight back and take an economic hit, or does it bend to America's economic demands? What do you think? Should Canada push back, seek new partners, or negotiate with Trump? Drop a comment and let's discuss. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more hard-hitting geopolitical analysis. This is Frank with America's Geopolitics. See you next time.